Guardians have made at least one major move this offseason. They traded Andres Gimenez. They got Luis Ortiz, back in that deal. There have been some rumors that Josh Naylor is a potential target for the Mariners, potential target for the Yankees. Do you think Josh Naylor is going to be a Cleveland Guardian next year? Or do you believe the Guardians will end up shipping him somewhere else for the 2025
I'd like
season?
to see him with the Yankees. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, it would
the
be.
Rocket Baby.
Yeah.
Hey, did I see that Riz signed with the Cubs?
No.
Oh, okay. It must have been somebody. I
This
thought
morning?
I saw that Rizzo was going back to Chicago.
I have not
I
seen
didn't see that.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't been paying that close attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. It hit me last night or yesterday when I saw the rumor about the Seattle move. There were no players mentioned leaving Seattle, which tells me they're prospects.
Well, maybe, but there's been a lot of rumors involving Seattle. Seattle's got the best pitching staff, starting rotation,
and they have
in
clearly
baseball.
defined holes.
And they have a lot of holes in their lineup.
And they're an organization that goes out and fills those holes.
Yes,
the
they're
way
an
you should do
aggressive
it.
trading team.
They are a very aggressive trading team.
So, and
I didn't see any names linked to it, though.
No, but so both Luis Castillo,
which I'm
not saying the Guardians would get him.
Listen,
You're not getting.
do it right now.
You're not getting him for Naylor.
I'm driving to the airport.
You'd have to give up more than Naylor.
You're not getting any of Seattle's pitchers for Naylor.
No, they're not
None
going
of
to.
them.
They're not going to do it.
Not just for Naylor, of course not. But they are willing to trade, not their top guys, not Gilbert and not, what's his name?
They're going to trade Castillo. That'll be who they trade.
What's that?
They'll trade Castillo.
Yeah, but they're going to want
Now-
more in return than 1 year of control on Josh Naylor.
Yes.
Absolutely. You'd have to trade more
And they
than
can't
Naylor.
afford him anyway. They can't afford Castillo's contract. They're not going to pay that.
Well, here's the thing.
His contract is reasonable for a top pitcher.
Reasonable by whose standards?
And Jay, here's something we haven't talked about, but I want your thoughts on this. If you sign someone to a 6-year contract, let's say,
yeah.
the Dolans are only going to have to pay 3 or 4 of those years.
Zach Meisel and I talked about that when they signed the Hemi deal. When they signed Jimenez, it's like, well, that's David Blitzer's problem.
Right.
The last couple of years on that deal. So, yeah. I mean, but, and maybe moving off Jimenez allows them
to do that
with somebody else.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I don't know who that guy is.
I don't either, but
Maybe
I
it's
think
Manzardo,
We're
quite honestly.
operating under the notion that, well, it's business as usual. They're not going to spend money. And while that still has been proven to be likely true for the next 2-3 years, I'm not sure exactly the year. I don't know when the clock started because the details were a little murky. It was like Blitzer Group can take more control each year until they eventually become majority owner. And I'm told that Dolans have no interest in being minority owners, so it would be full ownership
yes.
for the Blitzer Group.
The frustrating thing, though, Jay, is that, okay, let's say even if in pie in the sky they got Luis Castillo as part of a deal for Naylor. I agree with Jason. It's unlikely. Obviously, it couldn't just be Naylor. It would have to be certainly more than that. But let's say in theory they did. That would be great. He's a great pitcher still. But you already had a lineup with a lot of holes. And as flawed in some ways as Josh Naylor is, he's still your second best hitter.
Yeah.
At least
Yes.
with the Jimenez trade, you could say, well, he wasn't much of a hitter.
But you're moving on and you're saying it's Manzardo's turn.
Right, but Manzardo's going to be a starter whether Naylor's here or not.
He is, and so
Yeah.
it's whack-a-mole. You're not filling a hole.
Yeah.
You're creating another hole and filling that one, and it still leaves other holes.
Who's your second best hitter if Jose Ramirez is gone? Quan.
Yeah, but
And who's your third best?
I don't even know. Manzardo may end up being their second best.
But what you just said is
Yeah.
why I don't think Naylor's getting moved. I think.
Oh, you don't?
No, I think he's going to be in the lineup on opening day. You've mentioned
He doesn't
this
have a lot of
before.
trade value.
He doesn't have a lot of trade
No.
value, but the fact that there's still a lot of options out there for first base in
Right.
free agency,
Yeah.
so
Lots.
teams can go fill that spot. He doesn't have a ton of trade value because he's only got 1 year left. He's an eventual DH. He probably should be a DH now. So I think Josh is back in this lineup next year. That's
I
the
think his
impression
next
I've
stop,
got.
he'll be a
I think
DH.
that they shopped him. I think that they dangled him at the winter meetings, and they saw the value that was out there. And at some point, the Guardians are really good at getting some sort of value for the asset. You can't lose the asset for nothing.
Right.
But at some point, the return has to be worth what you're giving up. And
Right.
30 home runs and 100 RBIs is
Yeah, they
incredibly valuable to this
Right.
lineup. So at some point, you have to say, you know what? We may lose him next year, but we got a really good team now, and we're going to at least keep him for this year, and we'll get a compensatory pick, or we'll get something next year for him.
Yeah.
But right now, we have to go for it and at
The
least
reason
keep
I
him.
brought up the eventual change in ownership is because Naylor is projected to be in the 5-year, $100 million range when he becomes a free agent after next season. Those numbers are doable.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable.
I would not pay
But
him
I don't know
the
that you want to commit 5 years to him.
No, I'm just saying
Yeah,
that's what I think Sports Track or whoever it is that does these
Yeah.
MLB
estimations.
Trade Rumors is the best one out there.
Okay, I don't know what they have him projected, where they would
I
project
don't
him. I just saw a projection of he'll likely get 5 for 100. Now look, when you look at some of the deals, that's a bargain. Again, you're getting 30 home runs. Now, in the playoffs, he was a disaster.
Is 5 for 100 a good deal on a DH? I'm not saying yes or no.
Yes, I would do 5 for 100
I don't know
for
what
a
DH
DH.
I'd be
contracts.
surprised if he got a 5-year contract.
I would too.
I'm just-
What is
I'm
he,
not-
28? 29?
He's younger than you think.
Yeah, I don't
know.
think he's
Do you know,
29.
Mike, how old he is?
Josh Naylor, according to Pro Baseball Reference, is 27 years old.
Okay, so yeah, he
Feels like he should be older than that.
And listen,
His
five
build-
for
his
100. 5 years ago, that might have been like, whoa, Guardians or Indians would
Yeah.
never do a deal like that. 5 for 100 in 2025. When you compare it to the 685 that Soto got or whatever that number was. Now I know he's not the same player, but you're talking about a guy that if he can give you 30 home runs a year, that's.
But he's only hit the
someone's
30
likely-
home runs once.
Well, but he's gone up every year. I mean, he changed his game last year.
Yeah.
He clearly said, now he sacrificed average. He went down to 225 or whatever
Yeah.
he finished.
240, I think. He was in the 240s.
Okay, but he was a much better average hitter.
Yeah.
So but the sacrifice is worth it. That the Guardians basically told everybody, don't worry about the strikeouts, don't worry about the average as much. We need power.
But the Guardian, he's all uptight about DHing. I think if the Guardians are going to get in bed with somebody long term, it shouldn't be Josh Naylor.
Yeah, I think Josh is back at first next year. I don't think they're adding any more pitching. I think they're good with where they're at.
Do you think they're done?
Yeah,
You do?
I do.
I don't think they're
I
done.
don't just mean pitching. I mean,
I think they're done.
Yeah.
I think the payroll's going to be right around what it was last
What a
year.
joke.
that's a shame. It really is. The reason I brought up the fact that there were no names mentioned in the report.
Yeah.
This guy from MLB that had the original report.
Right.
And I read it and I looked and I said, well, wow, this is interesting. The only hint of any player movement is Naylor to Seattle, which tells me that it wouldn't be Castillo. It
Probably
would be
not.
a package of prospects. And here's what's driving me nuts, and it has for 20 years. And we continue to be a 4A baseball team.
Yeah.
We continue to develop stars so that when they're ready for huge spotlights and big contracts, they leave Cleveland. We're a feeder system.
Yeah.
When we make deals, we get prospects. We
develop
lose
them.
stars. And it's got to change.
now-
it hasn't worked. It won't work. At some point, you need star power.
The only thing you guys know how pissed off I am about the lack of spending, but the only defense I'll say on that front for the Guardians is, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, a lot of the really good players that they've moved on from have not done much after they've left here, outside of Lindor.
Well, I've always maintained we get the best out of these guys.
Yeah.
They especially in the 90s and even into the 2000s.
Yeah.
CC Sabathia, are you going to be better from 22 to 30 or 30 to 38? The proof is in the pudding
Yeah,
on that.
right.
It's mostly 22 to 30.
Right.
yeah.
So
Sabathia was still great.
he was
obviously.
great, but if
Yeah.
you look at his year by years, he was phenomenal when he was
Oh,
here.
100%.
I said last week I
yeah.
would not pay big money to a starting pitcher. I'm done
But
with
look
that.
at
Yeah.
at Kluber, nothing after he
Yeah.
left here.
No.
Clevenger, nothing after he left
Yep.
here. Now Bauer had a couple of good years.
You want a Cy Young.
And
He
they,
won a
and
Cy
they
Young.
can look at you.
That's a fraud Cy Young because it
But
was
here's the
COVID.
Well,
thing.
then Bieber's is
Everything-
fraud too.
Beavers is fraud too. Yeah, for me.
People can say, well, the Guardians have won nothing. So yes, it's it's a zero-sum game. Yeah, you got rid of players that haven't done anything elsewhere, but you consistently have not gotten
76.
championships.
And the one thing they
76
haven't
years.
tried is going out and signing a lot of big names and keeping their stars when they become available.
Right.
One thing I should amend when I say I think they're done, they'll probably add close to spring training guys who fall through the cracks. They'll
Yeah,
add one or
you're
two
done
guys.
with
Yeah, but they're done with major
the
pieces.
Cole Calhoun, Ramon Laureano type. They'll bring those. But I don't think I think Bazana's up this summer. I think DeLauder's up early, not to start the year, but he's up probably
I don't know.
May.
You have way more faith in them than I do.
Who, Bazana?
I mean,
I'm just saying.
First of all, he's only coming up if he's playing well. in
If
the minors.
Bazana hits 220, he's not coming up.
That's right.
Right.
But, in a best case scenario, Bazana's up probably this summer. DeLauder, if he could stay healthy, is probably up in May.
Yeah.
And
I had somebody that knows college baseball and minor league baseball as well as anybody tell me they think Bazana eventually has got to move to the outfield.
right now, they're
I know they're, it's his
second
opinion.
base. Yeah,
He
yeah.
Work for the Guardians.
Right now, it's second base. Like
One thing is we clean this up before Mary Kay comes in. We kind of
Brito could move around. I think Brito's the opening day second baseman.
Oh, okay.
And then he could move to the outfield or first base. Or,
We sort of disparaged Bauer and Bieber's Cy Youngs because they happened in the COVID year.
Only I disparaged him. Nobody else
No,
did.
and then Jason said, "Well, Bieber's."
Well,
is a
he-
fraud
I
too,
just-
then.
that was a
If you
counter.
go on that, okay. So,
Yeah.
the reason I say that's not fair. Everybody else pitched under those same circumstances.
I disparaged-
He was the best pitcher in that year.
Fair or foul, I disparage everything that happened in the COVID year in baseball. I disparage the Lakers championship. I think that's a joke. And even football to some degree because you played in front of no fans.
But everybody played in front of no fans.
I hear you.
I mean, it
just
was
don't-
fair for everybody. If some of those teams got to
Right.
play in front of packed stadiums and some didn't, I would say no, that's a fraud. But everybody played under the same circumstances.
But different home crowds have different effects on.
No, I agree with
We don't
that.
have to go-
but
it's the rabbit
you're
hole.
still
We're
the
never
best
gonna-
that
Sorry,
year.
Mike, fair
and
enough.
and
Yes, that's
the circumstances
fair.
were different, but they still were the best at their craft.
They were.
And I can't say that's a fraud. To me, that's just as impressive as anything else.